Welcome to the UFC 235 Sherdog.com preview show. I am James Lynch. He is Ant Walker. We just wrapped up the weigh-ins here at T-Mobile Arena. Pretty eventful weigh-in. Nothing really stood out. We'll get into that in a second, but let's talk about the main event. Jon Jones defending his title against Anthony Lionheart Smith. A huge favorite, Jon Jones, as he usually is, but this is one of the most, I think from an odds perspective, most lopsided fights on paper. How do you see this fight between Anthony Smith and Jon Jones?
I mean, I think the odds makers have it right. Jon Jones, you're talking about one of the greatest fighters that's ever walked the face of the earth. Anthony Smith, for all of the credit we can give him for having this great redemption story of being a journeyman and suddenly finding new life in the UFC and finding himself main eventing in Las Vegas, in the fight capital of the world, that's a big deal, but at the end of the day, you're still fighting Jon Jones. His assessment that his jiu-jitsu is what's going to win the day against Jones, hey, anything can happen, but I don't think we've seen anything from Smith on the ground that gives any credit to that statement.
Yeah, and I will give the UFC credit. They have sold Anthony Smith very well this week in terms of his backstory and just getting fans to win him over. I think if you look at the last fight against Volkan Ozdemir, the fact that he was down a little bit in that one, came back, won the fight, I think that adds a little bit of intrigue to the matchup, but I'm with you. I think Jones pretty much takes care of business on Saturday night, but nonetheless a great title fight. Getting to the co-main event, Tyron Woodley defending his title against Kamaru Usman. Love the war paint on Kamaru Usman's face, in the weigh-ins. They've done a good job building up this fight. I think a lot of people disappointed. This wasn't Colby Covington fighting, but they've done a good job selling it. How do you see this fight playing out tomorrow night?
I mean, I'm really intrigued by this fight, not only because from a competitive standpoint, but how we went from really wanting Woodley to fight Covington, and that was the fight we wanted. When this was announced, everybody was confused, like, why? Why are we doing this? But when you saw them interact at the pre-fight presser a few weeks ago, it was just magic between the two. Like the jaw jacking back and forth, it looked like this is a fight that should happen. And now seeing them together during fight week and seeing how Kamaru Usman has just been so confident, his spirits just so high. Tyron Woodley has been having the time of his life, it looks like, during this fight week. So to see this energy, like both guys are coming in so confident, both guys coming in with some serious athletic advantages over the rest of the division. I'm curious how it's going to play out. I'm leaning toward Tyron Woodley because I think the wrestling can negate each other, but Woodley is by far the better striker. At the very least, he hits much harder. I think Woodley might get this done. I'm looking at the third or fourth round TKO. I think he lets Usman kind of wear himself out trying to get the takedown, and once he abandons that tactic, I think Woodley's going to go to town with the hands.
I agree. I think a late finish is probably likely. The thing to me that I look at in Kamaru Usman's fights is that he hasn't really had that type of performance that makes you think, okay, there's a bit of an X factor there. He uses his wrestling. We know he's a good wrestler, but you can't do that against Tyron Woodley. And I think it is a bit of a jump going from Damian Maia and Rafael dos Anjos to Tyron Woodley. I'm with you. I think Woodley's power is going to be the difference in this one, and he gets a late finish.